Welcome to StoryLearn English. Tonight, I want to tell you a gentle story. A story about patience, courage, and the quiet strength that lives inside even the smallest creature. This is the story of an ant and a mountain.
Once upon a calm morning, when the sun had just begun to brush the sky with soft golden colors, a tiny ant woke up inside his little nest under an old banyan tree. His name was Tino. Tino was smaller than most of the ants in his colony. He had thin legs, a delicate body, and a quiet voice. But inside him there lived a dream so big that other ants laughed whenever he spoke about it. Just outside their forest stood a huge mountain, tall enough to touch the clouds. Its peak was always covered in white mist, and at dawn the sun lit it with orange fire. Every time Tino came out to gather food, he looked up at that giant mountain. And every time he whispered to himself, "One day I will climb you."
The laughter of the colony. One morning, when the ants were busy gathering crumbs and leaves, Tino suddenly announced, "I want to climb the mountain. I want to stand at the very top." All the other ants stopped working. They stared at him, and then they burst out laughing. "Tino, you can barely carry a leaf. You will get tired before even reaching the foothills. The mountain is for eagles, not for ants." Even the queen ant said gently, "Tino, we admire your spirit, but you must stay safe. Your place is here, with us, gathering food." Each word felt like a stone on Tino's tiny heart, but his dream remained strong. That night, he lay awake looking at the silhouette of the mountain far away. It seemed impossible, but his heart whispered, "Try, just try." The journey begins. The next morning, before anyone else woke up, Tino stepped out of the nest. The world was quiet. Dewdrops sparkled like diamonds on grass blades. A cold breeze brushed against his tiny body. He started walking toward the mountain, step by step, slow and steady. The journey to the base of the mountain took an entire day for a little ant like him. His legs hurt, his back hurt, his body shivered from the cold wind. But when he reached the mountain shadow, he felt a warm excitement. He touched the mountain's rocky surface with his tiny leg and whispered, "Hello, I'm here." The mountain didn't move, didn't speak, didn't seem to care. But Tino smiled, and he began his climb. The first fall. The rocks were rough. The slope was sharp. Every inch felt like a mile. Tino climbed slowly, gripping tiny cracks with his tiny legs. But suddenly, a strong wind blew across the mountain. Tino lost his grip. He fell. He rolled down, hitting little stones, tumbling like a tiny pebble. When he finally reached the bottom, he lay still. His legs shook, his heart pounded, his body ached everywhere. He looked up at the huge mountain towering above him. It looked even bigger now, even scarier. For a moment, Tino thought, maybe they were right. Maybe I can't do this. He closed his eyes. But inside, something whispered, "If you fall, climb again." So Tino stood up, shaking, hurt, but determined. He placed one tiny foot on the mountain again and climbed. The River of Doubt.
After hours of climbing, Tino reached a small ledge where a tiny river flowed down the mountain like melted silver. It wasn't big for humans, but for an ant it was enormous, more like a rushing waterfall. Tino stared at the water in shock. "How will I cross this?" he whispered. The water rushed fast, splashing tiny drops that felt like punches to his body. He sat down, feeling hopeless again. While he waited, a beetle approached him, large, shiny, and confident. "What are you doing here, little ant?" the beetle asked. "I'm trying to climb the mountain," Tino replied softly. The beetle laughed loudly. "You, an ant? This mountain is not for ants. Go home." And without waiting, the beetle used his strong wings and flew across the river. Tino watched him disappear. His heart sank. But then a soft voice rose within him again. "Go slowly. There is always a way." Tino began to look around. On the side of the ledge, he noticed a small fallen twig bridging the water, a tiny natural bridge only an ant could see. With courage in his breath, he stepped onto the twig, step by step, careful, steady, and he crossed the river. He couldn't believe it. "I did it," he whispered. "I actually did it." His courage grew. Night on the mountain. As the sun set, the mountain turned blue and quiet. Cold wind blew through the cracks. Tino found a small hollow space in the rock and went inside. For the first time, he looked down. Far below, the forest looked like a green carpet. His home was just a tiny dot. Tino felt amazed. He had already come far, farther than anyone believed he could. That night he slept softly inside the hollow, dreaming of the peak above.
The Snake of Shadows. The next morning, the sky was filled with clouds. Everything looked dark and threatening. As Tino climbed higher, a shadow suddenly moved across the mountain wall. A large snake slithered out from behind a rock. Its tongue flicked. Its eyes searched. Tino froze. He was too small, too slow. He couldn't fight. He could only wait. The snake's head came close, very close. It sniffed the air around Tino. Tino whispered in his heart, "Please, please, let me live." But the snake ignored him. It slowly crawled past him and disappeared into a crevice. Tino collapsed on the rock, shaking with fear. He wasn't just climbing a mountain. He was climbing his fears. The storm. When Tino finally felt safe, he continued upward. But soon dark clouds gathered. The wind began to roar. A storm was coming. For a tiny ant on a giant mountain, a storm was not just rain and wind, it was a battle for survival. Raindrops crashed like boulders. Wind pushed him backward like an invisible wall. Tino clung to the rock with every bit of strength he had. He shouted into the wind, "I won't give up!" Lightning flashed. Thunder shook the sky. For hours, Tino fought the storm. His body was tired. His legs trembled. His eyes burned. But he didn't let go. When the storm finally passed, Tino lay exhausted, but alive. The world around him sparkled with fresh rain. Drops hung from leaves like bright pearls. Tino whispered, "I survived. I really survived."
The Bird of Freedom. The next challenge came at dawn. A large bird circled the mountain, searching for food. Tino hid under a leaf, staying perfectly still. He watched as the bird's shadow swept across the ground. The bird landed nearby, and Tino felt its presence like a monster towering over him. But the bird didn't find him. It flew away. Tino took a long breath. Every moment on the mountain felt like a test. Every step was a lesson, and every danger he survived made him stronger. The final climb. At last, after many days and nights, Tino reached a very steep part of the mountain. The peak was close now, so close he could almost touch the sky. But this was the hardest part. There were no ledges, no cracks, only a straight, sharp wall. Tino looked up. His heart beat fast. Could he do it? He remembered everyone who laughed at him, everyone who doubted him, everyone who said, "You can't." And he whispered, "I can. I will." He began to climb, slowly, painfully, using every tiny bit of strength left in him. His legs slipped, his body shook, but he kept going, higher, 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 until finally his tiny hand touched the peak. He pulled himself up and stood on top of the mountain. The world stretched before him like a painting. The clouds were beneath him. The wind was soft and warm. The sun broke through the mist and bathed him in golden light. Tino stood there, an ant, small, fragile, ordinary, yet standing on a place even strong animals had never reached. He whispered, "I did it. I really did it." Tears of joy filled his eyes. He wasn't just an ant anymore. He was a dreamer who refused to give up. He was proof that size means nothing, because courage, patience, and determination can climb any mountain. The lesson. Tino eventually climbed back home, where the colony was shocked. They listened to his journey with amazement, and from that day on, whenever a young ant felt weak or afraid, the elders would say, "Remember Tino, the ant who climbed a mountain." The story spread across the forest, and it carried a message. No dream is too big, no creature is too small, and no mountain is too high if you keep climbing. Thank you for listening to the story. To get more story like this to improve your English skill, please subscribe this channel, StoryLearn English.